So what do you think, Russell? What's your thoughts been over the last week? Because I think we need to have a look at Hearts, Ross County and Hamilton as 3 games. Because
I think I take your point about the fact it's a championship club and the 2 worst clubs in the league. What I like to think of in the positive aspect of it is, though, the fact that Lennon seems to be making the changes that we were maybe crying out for earlier on in the season, such as, of course, I think the biggest difference for me has been the introduction of David Turnbull. I think he's been absolutely outstanding since he came in. He's brought a real energy at the midfield, as well as Sorrow. But I just think as a creative force as well, Turnbull's so positive in the way he plays, which I think's seen a real upturn in the performances from Celtic, and I think they're obviously the results. But I also think that the thing that gives me a wee bit more optimism is the other changes he's made as well, such as I like the fact he improvised with Ira at right back, and we touched on that last week. And of course, the main one yesterday was Lee Griffiths and Edward up front together. That is what we really wanted to see at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? It was, once you've got those 2 up front together, we were desperate last year for the Glasgow derby to happen. Remember, obviously, the games got cancelled. Literally, it was going to be that weekend, wasn't it? When they stopped the league, it was going. And we were baying for their blood because of this Griffiths and Edward partnership up top. We thought it was going to terrorise them. He has managed to bring that back. He has managed to get them a game already together. There's another one before the game at Ibrox where I think they'll both start again together. And I'm quite optimistic about that. I fully appreciate what you're saying about not getting carried away with the actual opposition we've beaten during these 5 games. And I do get that point. But what I'm feeling a lot more optimistic is about the fact he finally seems to be not just trying to do the same thing over the same old setups. Even the midfield looks different. It looks like a diamond 4 midfield, which I'm not too familiar with us playing before this season as well. So there seems to be a realisation of the mistakes that have been made before, or there seems to be more of an acceptance that when he needs to change things, change it. Do you know what I mean?
Or it could just be the fact if you chuck a hedgehog at a dartboard, it's likely to hit the bullseye, eh? So if you change it that many times, you're sometimes likely to get it right. And look, when you look at the class of the opposition, and I see folk in the comments, and I see folk all the time are saying Rangers are not that good. Well, the Wall stood their Europa League group that we finished bottom. Your Europa League group in the same competition, and we played against 2 quality sides in Lille and AC Milan. And there is probably cause for confidence with spells in both the Lille games and both the Milan games. But the bottom line is, we failed to win any of the 4 games.
Yeah.
We won the Lille game at Celtic Park, right enough. But we failed. We were 2-0 up in Lille. They brought it back to 2-8. If that game would have lasted 10 more minutes, we were losing that game. Against Milan, we went 2-0 up and completely collapsed right away as soon as they scored. And that's a worry that I've got. I've got a worry that the mentality of this team has had over the last 3-4 seasons is no longer there. And that's my worry. And my worry is that the coaching staff have tried absolutely everything to get that mentality back, and it's not going to come back. It's almost as if this team has just run its course. And that's that's where I'm coming from. Now, I want us. Now, if I'm doing the match day at Ibrox, sitting here in my kitchen, I'll be sitting here going, I reckon we can win this game because I am a fan. But deep down, if somebody's going to ask me, what's your real opinion? I'm going, well, if we get away with a draw at Ibrox, no matter how badly or how well people think Rangers are playing, I'm looking at ourselves. We've lost 3 goals against a championship team, and we've struggled for spells against Ross County, and I thought Hamilton was not a bad performance. But we're playing against teams that are not in the same league, not in the same bracket as what Gerrard and Michael Beale and Gary McAllister have got a Rangers side. We're coming up against a Dundee United side on Wednesday night, Russell, who have had 3 decent results in the last 3 games. I actually thought, when I spoke on Saturday, I actually thought that Dundee United had lost that game. I didn't realise they had got a late equaliser when I came on here. But they've had 3 decent results. The Bet Kilmarnock, who are a poor side, actually, having a look at it. But they've drew with Hibs and they drew with a Motherwell side as well. Dundee United are a stuffy, stodgy side who know how to get results. And they're the type of side that we've struggled against this season.
No, I totally agree with that, and I understand where you're coming from. Again, for me, it's win or bust. So they've got to simply do it. There is no alternative. I do like to think that, when you get wins, it does bring confidence. And I think the 5 wins in the spin, and I think with the Ibrox game just lurking in the background, I definitely think we will get the result, to be honest with you. I'm always more confident, as I say, with that partnership up front as well, which I'm convinced they will go with again. I thought Eddie looked back to his old self, didn't he, against Hamilton as well. And whether it's Dundee United or you're playing in, the Europa League or the Champions League, if Eddie's on fire, then he can definitely take the defence apart. There's no 2 ways about it. I do understand there's got to be realism involved, because when you've had a season like we have right now, and it's been so negative really so far, so many performances. My biggest worry about, I think, if we fast forward to Ibrox game, is that we do get an early lead there. Because, like you said against Milan, we went to 2-0 up, and then just suddenly, once we concede one, just sort of fold. I'd like to think we've eradicated that, and that by getting wins sort of helps to sort of stop that being the norm. And it'll be a really big test in that match. But as for the Dundee United game, I think it's obviously it's so critical that we do win it. I think we will, to be honest with you. I'm quite confident about that one.
We don't even need to go as far back as the AC Milan game, Russell. I mean, we were 2-0 up against a championship team in a cup final, and as soon as they scored, you saw that we were going to collapse. And for the life of me, I can't see Liam Boyce and Gary Naismith, I was going to say there, and Stephen Naismith getting into that AC Milan side, who are currently top of Serie A after beating Lazio 3-2. It was a great game. I actually watched it. It was a fantastic game. So our frailty is there. And if you go back to the game against Rangers earlier on in the season, as soon as we lost the first goal, that was us. We were gone. We were mentally gone. And that's where I'm worried about. I like us at Hamilton at the weekend as well. I wanted an early goal. And I was one of the ones at half-time who was still quite positive, for all you who actually think I'm negative all the time. I says, I think we'll score early in the second half. I don't think this performance is that bad. We're doing what we should be doing against a team which is down the bottom end of the top of the league, who haven't won at home for 3 games. We're pinning them back. We're actually creating no bad chances. But our frailties are still there. Our problems are still there. And I'm worried. I'm worried about any game we go a goal behind in now.
I know what you mean. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the defence as well, because obviously we had Near Bitten playing at the weekend, as the commentator kept calling him. But I mean, I don't know. That seemed a wee bit left field for me. I thought he was trying more to settle with the Julian Duffy thing. I'm not sure if I don't know what the script is with Duffy, because he was on the bench, but apparently he's not fit. Is that right?
I don't know. If he's on the bench, then he's got to be fit to play some part. That's the way I look at it. I know I say I was a bit different with Brown, but Brown's have got a completely different orbit in that Celtic team. But Brown needs to be in and about that dressing room, and I think that's been proved time and time again. I would think if Julian was back and Duffy was fit, I would want to see Duffy, Julian, and Ayer play and Taylor. Ayer right back, Duffy and Julian as a partnership, and Greg Taylor as a left back with Hazard behind them. And that 5 have got to play on Wednesday night against Dundee United.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that completely. We're getting subbed off already, Paul.
Can you actually hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Aye.
Is that better quality? Can some of the people tuning in tell me if that's better quality? I've got microphones at the boxes here just to see if they're getting the last one.
It's still crackly at my end.
Sounds
I'm pretty sure they'll tell us. They'll tell us pretty quickly if it's gash. But anyway, still crackly, PJ. Oh dear me. Listen, I know where I'm no right, so you guys keep the chat going. It's rotten. Thank you very much. No problem. I'm just dying to get involved here. I'll have beer again.
Oh, there we go. That was like a substitution that was going to get made there, and you score, and the sub gets his top back on. And has to go and sit back down. You're not getting on the day, pal. You're not getting your appearance bonus. Now, Michael the boy is asked, what I will say to the viewers, and I said this last Monday as well, I haven't got the ability to put the comments up, so Paul will be doing that in the background because he's in the back still producing the button, pushing the buttons. So Michael the boy, the comments up there, Sorrow or Brown for Ibrox. I'll give that one to Russell.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? What I would say is, when Scott Brown, I think when we were all picking our team for the Scottish Cup final, we all were kind of leaning towards Sorrow because of the 2 games previous that he played so well in. Neil Lennon, it turned out, did get it right by playing Brown. I thought Brown's first half was as good as I've seen him all season. Like I said that last week. Can you get that same performance out of him? Even if it means it's only for the first half or 60 minutes at Ibrox, set the tone, set the agenda, have a lead, take Brown off, bring on further energy with Sorrow for the final half hour. But, we could be in front by then. It might be brilliant to be able to do that, Sorrow's not really put a foot wrong, though. And I think you need to look at that. I can't think of any mistakes he's made so far when I've watched him. Any glaring errors anyway. It's very difficult to leave someone who's in good form, having such a positive effect on the team, bringing much needed energy to a midfield that I think deep down we all felt had went a wee bit stale this season, looked a wee bit out of ideas. Now, like I've already said, I feel Turnbull's the creative one, the imaginative one, and the one who's just got a wee bit of magic about him, do you know what I mean, who's capable of something out the ordinary, and has just got a real bit of self-belief about him right now, which I love. But you've got to give a lot of credit to the part that Sorrow's played in that as well. He is a real buzz bomb in the midfield. He's full of life, full of beans. He's always manages to get his toe round a player's leg to try and win it back. He seems to have legs that can bend the other way. Do you know what I mean? It's quite impressive. His passing's very direct, always on the deck, very often going forward as well. And I think without being overly critical, a lot of the opportunities Sorrow takes to play to fling one along the deck 10 yards is the option that Brown would have went sideways at times. You can see it. Do you know what I mean? Brown would be picked the safer option, whereas Sorrow's probably looking at it going, it's not even that big a risk, the passing play. Let's just get it forward. I think there's a great argument for both. The one thing I will say is we know there's no sentimentality coming into it. If Brown does start at Ibrox, it will be a footballing decision this time, and that'll be based on the performance he put in the cup final. Do you know what I mean? But again, of course, he's got to be fit. He's got to be fit, Kev. Do you know what I mean? Obviously he's out the last game with an injury. You can't be rushing back a 35-year-old Scott Brown for a Glasgow derby. You can't just be doing that. Do you know what I mean? It's got to be based on his previous performance and his performances in training.
I think the decision gets made easier if Sorrow isn't fit. If Scott Brown, and I'm just getting interrupted by a 2-year-old there. I think the decision is made easier for Neil Lennon if Scott Brown isn't fully fit and he's only fit enough for the bench. But my problem is, if Scott Brown is fit and you're trying to get Sorrow and Brown in the team, it means either Turnbull or Griffiths drops out for me, because Callum McGregor's not going to drop out. Callum McGregor's either getting moved to that left-hand side, or he's actually getting played further forward in the Turnbull role. But you're losing either Turnbull or Griffiths, and they're the two guys that everybody's been shouting for. So to bring in Brown, I think for me if he brings in Brown, you're going to lose Griffiths, because I can see Turnbull moving to the left-hand side. And I can see Christie staying on the right-hand side, and Callum McGregor. No, I can see McGregor moving to the left-hand side and Turnbull and us playing the 4-4-1, the 4-4-1-1 formation. That's what I can see if he's going to bring back in Brown. But I think that you've got the problem there. Bringing back in Brown, you're going to, if we are making great strides, like some people want us to say that we are making great strides, then bringing back in Brown knocks that momentum away.
Yeah, it's a step back. I get what you're saying there.
It's a step back.
For me, it's got to be Brown or Sorrow, like the comments said. I think that would be. But I hear what you're saying. If he brings back Brown, he might, on the basis of Sorrow's form. And then if it was to be Griff that dropped out, I would be gutted, because I think he's such a threat. He's the one. He's the player I think that even Rangers fans would accept, puts a wee bit of fear in them. Do you know what I mean? Right now, and I know right now they'll be in a Gallus train and all that. Do you know what I mean? That's fair enough. We've been there plenty of times. You know what I mean? But I think Griffiths, when he's played, he looks like he's going to score. He has scored most times he's played as well. And I think now he's getting starts under his belt. Him and Eddie, to me, is just a different problem for opposition centre-halves to deal with that they've not faced for Celtic yet. And it's really important that we start with as positive a lineup as we possibly can and don't resort, like you say, to 4-4-1-1s or anything like that. Now, I just think it's win or bust, like I said. You know what I mean? We need to just go for it, have a go, because we tried to be cagey last time out and it was 0 shots on target. It's unacceptable, completely unacceptable. We need to have a go this time. Try and put the fear, try and flip the switch the other way around, and have us setting the pace, setting the tone. That'd be what I'd be looking for.
We done that in the game that we won 2-0 at the start of last season. We set the tone in that game and pinned them back. And it wouldn't surprise me to see Neil Lennon and the coaching staff try to do the same. I noticed a couple of people in the comments talking about why wouldn't we drop Ryan Christie? And I do get why Ryan Christie is a sort of Marmite character with some of the Celtic support, but I can't see Neil Lennon dropping his energy for a game at Ibrox. I just can't. So I would see Ryan Christie playing on that left-hand side, the right-hand side all the time. I can't see Ryan Christie getting dropped. And he does actually create stuff for us. And I think he's got the energy to pin their fullbacks back. Now, Aero 250 says, mine last season when everyone wrote us off at the winter break, they collapsed under the pressure. Beat Dundee United and then the pressure will mount. That's what they've not experienced yet. I completely agree, but I still think that even if we do get a result against them at Ibrox and we do beat Dundee United, until we're level on games with them and it's a level playing field, then they won't feel any pressure. Until it's down to they haven't got any snookers. Until their snookers have disappeared and we're level with the same amount of games, which have just actually been found out, it won't be in March. Seemingly, we won't be level on the number of games played. It'll be March. So there you go. It's going to be March. But then again, if we go into the period with March, 4 points behind, 7 points behind, into what is the money shot of the season, then I'll be sitting here going, I reckon we can do it. If we go into that point only 7 points behind. Because then it is really squeaky bum time. Then it is down to experience how to see it in. But at this point, there's no pressure on Rangers whatsoever.
No, I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to go a wee bit against it, because I think actually since we did start getting a couple of wins, I don't know, but I has rocked the boat there a wee bit, and certainly went convincing against Hibs. They were a goal down at home to, was it Dundee United, was it? Motherwell parked the bus. And that's been the first time that they've not been convincing 2 games in a row in the league as well. And it does coincide with us going on a win and run. I'm not reading too much into it at this stage, because at the end of the day, if that was their tests, then they have still passed them. But certainly not in the convincing manner that they were slapping teams aside earlier on in the season. And you've got to admit, the only variable is Celtic is now on a win and run again. So I think they can be got at mentally. I think the second half of the season is a huge mental test on both teams' part. Can Celtic find the mental fortitude that they've shown over the last few years to show that unbelievable consistency of winning trophies? Can they still keep that up? Can they go into autopilot, I would almost call it, and that is just go on that 15-game winning run? I think was it 13 last year or 11 after the winter break they did in a row, just knocking teams aside, just off the bat, 11 wins in the spin. If we can put a run together, we need to be more than that, by the way, but if we can do a win and run together, 15, 16, that would include beating them on Sunday. It'd be interesting to then contrast and compare with what scores they get alongside that run, because that's what freaked them out last year, was when we started winning games, those games in a row after winter, they couldn't cope with that. Once we started, I've got to agree with what the comment's saying. I think they've not had that real acid test yet in terms of the pressure being put on by us, and it's time for us to do that now. Do you know what I mean?
I think by the time we get to the end of this podcast, Russell, you might actually have me believing that we can win 20 games in a row. You could convert me to a believer and I'll be screaming for the rooftops, hallelujah, we're going to do it. So Paul's asking, how do we nullify Tavernier and Barisic? Will Mikey Johnson start to give us that lift that we've missed so much this season? What do you think about that? How do you think?
I think it's a good question. I think it's a great question. I think it's the $1 million question about the Rangers fullbacks. I don't spend a lot of time watching Rangers games, but I've watched odd Europa League one. When the pubs are open, we were watching the beer garden on the telly. So you watch the Celtic one, the Rangers game was on after it happens. But they've got wicked deliveries. There's just no two ways about it. Both Tavernier and Barisic, they're delivering the box. We have to be ready for it. We have to nullify it. When you're looking at Barisic, I think it's obvious. You've already touched on it, Kev. I think we bring in Christopher Ayer at right back. If you've got the right options at centre-half, of course. But I don't think Barisic should be having any dramas about facing up to Frimpong again. Frimpong was either instructed not to take him on last time out or shat the bed, one of the two. I'm not entirely sure which one, but there is no two ways about it. Frimpong looked half the player he normally looks against Borna Barisic, didn't he? And it was really, really strange to see someone like Frimpong with devastating pace, scared to take his man on. On the flip side of that, Frimpong defensively, as we all know, has his frailties. Can he prevent these balls coming in the box as effectively as someone like Christopher Ayer? The answer is no. On the other side, Tavernier's having the season of his life. It's not just his balls into the box that are the biggest threat. I think we need to be really careful about giving set pieces away around the edge of the box. Firstly, because his crosses are so good and we look so frail for set pieces defending them. Secondly, because he could put one in the top bins, and we know that no one's sold yet on who the first choice goalkeeper at Celtic is yet. So he's a big threat, Tavernier. I think between Greg Taylor and Laxalt, to me, there's not much in it. I think very much like Taylor is in the sorrow bracket, that he's not done anything to deserve to be taken out the team. But Laxalt's very much his equal, I think, at left back. I know Laxalt's perhaps not been as good as what he was when he first joined, but I personally don't think there's much in that one between them. If anything, Laxalt maybe got a wee bit more dig in the tackle than what Taylor does. Although Taylor gives his all, I think Laxalt's maybe just a harder bloke than Taylor is in the tackle, that's all.
I don't know. I think maybe Laxalt is just one of those players that you notice more than Greg Taylor, and maybe that's just to do with his look or his energy or how he buzzes about up and down that left touchline.
Yeah,
but I think Greg Taylor's done well since he's came in. I think Greg Taylor gives us a bit more solidity down that side, which is fun. I would like to see us at one point attempt to put Laxalt in front of him and have a Taylor Laxalt double up there, and that's something Lennon could do at Ibrox. He could actually end up playing Ayer and Frimpong on one side and Taylor and Laxalt on the other, because of that Rangers' biggest strength is also their biggest weakness. When you actually look at it, it is. And as you say, any free kick 30 yards from our goal, the teams have actually got a good chance of scoring the way that we've actually been defending them. So for Wednesday night, I mean, I'm sure the players are in training today, and they're not actually thinking about Ibrox on Saturday. It's a great point by Brian Graham, 67. I worry about the goalkeeper lacking game management. That is something that we have had this season, and we've had it in a lot of games this season. It doesn't matter; it's the big games or the smaller games. We seem to lack game management. I go back to the game at Pittodrie, 3-2 up with 10 minutes to go. You shouldn't actually be drawing that game the way that we drew it as well. Our game management has been poor at times this season, but we have to hope that we get it right. We're not going to sit here and be completely negative. We're not going to sit here and say we want us to lose games, because we don't. None of us want us to lose games. We just want a bit of shows that we can go into Saturday with a bit of positivity. And yes, we've had clean sheets in the last 2 games and that, but we've got to be real who we actually played against. January is a big month. I reckon the next 4 weeks will define this season and the start of next season. What do you think of that?
I think the next week. I think the next week. I really do. I think if we don't get the result, and I understand what Desmond said in the comments about the Dundee United game, we need to think of that first. I only get on a Monday, Desmond. That's the problem. I've got to look at both games that I'm on. But I think, he's right on what he's saying with regards to if we draw or get beat by Dundee United, the whole game's a bogey anyway. The game's a bogey, do you know what I mean? So it doesn't really matter. As I've already said earlier on in the show, I think we will, because we need to, and I think I've still got a wee bit of keeping the faith. I've still got a wee bit of faith that they do have the mentality to win when they need to. And then when it comes to, obviously, when you're trying to think what I was going to say there, I just completely lost my thread. But I think when it comes to the Rangers game, right, if we were to get it, that would be 7 wins in a row. 7 wins in a row, that would be the first time we've done that this season. I think we get 6 earlier this season. I know it was between competitions, but I think if we were to win our next 2 games, that would be 7 wins in a row for the first time this season. And that is why this week is so important. See, I tied it back there. Just managed to tie it back to me. And that is why I think this week is so important, though, because that would set the tone. If we do something that we've not done already yet this season and get 7 wins in a row together, it's a big deal. If we can beat them, it's a big deal. Do you know what I mean? Close that gap a wee bit. Start thinking. I mean, I know people can't count the games in hand, but we will once it becomes 4 points is all the difference is if we win all those games in hand. Suddenly, we stop talking about, if we win them, we don't look like winning them. We'll believe that we will win them, and we will start calling it a 4-point gap to ramp up that pressure right back on the other side. It's all about, as I say, this second half of this season is going to be all about the mental games. It's all about the mental games and who's the battle of the fittest in terms of what they can do up there. And obviously we know who's got form for crumbling in the past, but no one could have foreseen Celtic's crumble this season that when they had that 2-12 spell. No one could have envisaged that happening either. So we don't know how it's going to pan out. But it's very interesting to see what happens.
I'll go back to my comment about the next 4 weeks being massive, or the next 5 weeks being massive. We get into a transfer window, and you talk about the mental state of mind of the club. Paul mentioned earlier, and he's just made a really good point about Taylor. Taylor, 12 appearances, 4 assists this season. Only Christie has more. So, as I say, I sometimes think Laxall looked the busier player and the better player. And I must admit, if you go back and have a look at the games, I thought he was fantastic. But I think he has tailed off over the last couple of weeks. Paul put up a comment earlier on, and it was Roger Mitchell, the former chief executive of the Scottish Premier League, who says that the Italian newspapers are talking about Juventus and AC Milan being in for Eddie. And they are going to for reported 30 million. It's reported 30 million. We can argue about whether he's worth that, whether we'll get that all. But there does seem to be genuine interest for Edouard in January from 2 of the biggest clubs in world football. What would it say to our mental state if we let Edouard go in January? What would that say to the mental state of the club?
It's really, really difficult. It's because at the end of the day, Eddie's only really sort of shown, as I said in the last couple of games, that he's remotely back to anything like his old self. The rest of the season has not really been there for Eddie at all. There's 18 months left in his deal. Has he been offered a contract and turned it down? We don't know, really. I would have liked to have thought we'd have offered him a new deal by now, Kev. Do you know what I mean? Usually you don't let players, especially your elite players, your best player, and he is our best player, let's be honest. You don't usually let them get to 18 months left on their contract. £30 million, however, is a lot of money for an SPL player, SPFL player, I should say, with only 18 months left in their contract. Business is business. What does it say to the mentality? It would say, I don't think it is as much of a white flag. It would all be about when in the window they sell him, right? So I'm going to be a wee bit cagey with my answer here, but I think when they sell him would be important. If they sold him for 30 million the last day of the window and no replacement, that would say a lot of negative vibes about the mentality and that they don't really think we're going to win the league. If they do it at the beginning of January and give Lennon a healthy chunk of that to go out and bring in someone who can lead the line for the next 3, 4, 5 years, from wherever that may be, you would like to think, as we always say, they've got contingency plans, although we're not quite convinced that they do. But if they do, if they were to sell him early in the window, I wouldn't have that much issue with it if you were talking about numbers like £30 million for a guy who's perhaps looked like since the start of the season his heart's not really in it anymore and is inevitably going to leave in the next 18 months anyway. But if you were to sell him at the end of that window, yeah, it wouldn't be a good sign to the supporters. It wouldn't we maybe would get a replacement in, but we would all then call that a rushed piece of business and not exactly who Neil Lennon's number one target is. And yeah, that could set the tone for a lot of negativity as well.
It would, but then football's football, business is business, and I'm not trying to bring down the tone. Again, you were really positive there, and I jumped on your positive bandwagon, Russell. And you were,
yeah.
But this is a question that's going to need to get asked because it's going to be every single day in January. We're either going to get linked with players or we're going to be linked with players, or players are going to get linked with leaving. And the club recently came out and told the free supporters groups that they wouldn't sell anybody in January. I, for 1 second, do not believe that because it's really not their call. It really isn't their call if enough money comes in. With the amount of money that we've lost during this pandemic, then if we get a serious offer, and I'm talking about a serious offer, I'm not going to put any figures on what I think a serious offer is. I mean a serious offer. It makes the board go, wow. I reckon Eddie will go. I reckon any of the players will go because that is football business. What would be the statement for me would be if we didn't reinvest any of that money.
Yeah.
And if we believe that Kamala and Ayeti and Griffiths are enough to see us to the end of the season, that would be a serious raising of a white flag to me. But what I would actually say is we're always told that January is a really, really tough window. January is a really, really tough window, and you can't get decent players in January. And it wouldn't surprise me one little bit, knowing the way that we work as a football club, if we sell Eddie to make up the massive hole for the lack of Champions League money and the lack of supporters being in the ground. And we get sold the narrative that we've spent £5 million on his replacement and he's sitting on the bench and Albi and Ayeti. I think we'll actually go down that route. If Eddie leaves, I think we'll get spun that and we'll sign a goalkeeper, a right back and a wide player. I don't think if Eddie goes, we'll replace Eddie. And that's not me being negative, that's just me looking at a real business point of view.
Yeah, you think they already did it when they signed Ayeti in the first place. That was with one eye on Edouard perhaps leaving in the summer window.
Aye. I think Ayeti's already been signed as his replacement.
Yeah, I mean, well, Ayeti's he's a conundrum to me. He really is. I don't understand. He looked deadly when he first joined. He looked, despite the fact there was the whole match fitness element to him, when he played, he just looked like, I was like, well, he's got the predator instinct, so that's what we're looking for. And then he seems to have fallen away badly. And again, he can't get match fix. He can't get on the pitch now. But he does. I mean, he doesn't look as motivated. I don't think when he comes on as what he did before. A couple of shots of the camera on him in the game against Hamilton, and he did just look a wee bit despondent, in my opinion. And I don't know if he's a work in progress. I think with Klimala, I think the fact of the matter is he's doing exactly what we expect now with Klimala. I don't think he's ever going to be the answer to be a first team regular. I think he'll always be someone who, when we're 2-0, 3-0 up, will come on for 10, 20 minutes just to give him a run out and to prove that it wasn't the biggest waste of £3.5 million ever. But he's never going to make it as a regular. I'd be extremely concerned if the Italian reports are true. We're bringing in as much as £30 million for Odsonne Edouard, and the replacements are already at the football club. That would gravely concern me, Kev.
It would gravely concern you, but then if I was playing devil's advocate here, which I've got to do on this podcast at times, I would actually say then it's a fantastic bit of business because you've had his replacement in the club for 6 months.
Of course.
You've had his replacement in the club for 6 months to get bedded in. So you're not bringing in his replacement right away and hoping that he's going to hit the ground running. Your replacement's already there. Michael commented on the painting behind me. And what I'll actually say, Michael, if you didn't know what the painting is, then go and look up Screamadelica by the Primal Scream and you're in for a fantastic afternoon. No, Wayne did the paint. So Terry Tibbs, we're not getting 30 for Eddie. Is that £30, 30 notes for... Seemingly Terry Tibbs is a second-hand car salesman, so is that £30 for one of your second-hand cars, Terry? I'm actually looking for a used car, so I might actually contact you after the show. In my opinion, Dembele was twice the player, and we only got 20 million for him, which is true. And we don't know what the sell-on clause is for Dembele yet. So he has got a point. I think Dembele was a more complete player, but I think Edouard's got the more skills in his locker to actually go higher than Dembele. And what I'll actually say, and you can shoot me, but dinna at me with this, I reckon both these players will leave Celtic and end up with champion. I reckon Dembele and Edouard will both have Champions League winner medal by the time they finish their career. I believe that. If that's wrong, that's wrong. See, I think we get bogged down on saying we only get £30 million for him. We only get £20 million for him. That's not for us to say. We'll sell him for a deal that the club think is a good deal. It doesn't matter if we think it's a good deal or not. If the club believe it's a fantastic bit of business, they'll do it. And you've got with Edouard as well, you've got the supposed 40% sell-on fee to PSG as well. So I think we're getting to the point. I believe that Ayet has already been brought in as a replacement. And if Eddie stamps his feet loud enough, if a serious bid comes in January and Eddie stamps his feet loud enough in January, he will go in January.
Yeah, no, totally, mate. I agree. And I think to pick up on the point about the valuation, it's not always, you need to always remember the circumstance as well when players leave. And I think Dembele's deal was he'd really, pushed to get out of Celtic, and it was at the last minute that he got his move, and that maybe did bring the value down a bit. Such was the desperation on Dembele's part and the upset he was causing to get out towards the end, obviously, and the fact that he'd called Rodgers' bluff a wee bit on it all. I think all led to the fact that his value was maybe slightly depreciated. Also remember as well, Eddie's broke Dembele's France under 21 goals record, so statistically that also inflates your value above what Dembele's would be. Also remember it's the January transfer window. The January transfer window is notoriously difficult to get the players you want, and you do tend to have to pay over the odds unless it's someone who's not playing a game, whereas Edouard's never going to be that guy. He's the first name on Celtic's team sheet, going for 10 in a row. I'm
going to correct you there, Russell. It's only notoriously difficult for Celtic. It doesn't seem to be difficult for any other teams.
Yeah, well, don't get me started. I think there was a list read out on one of these podcasts a couple of weeks ago by one of Paul's guests. I can't remember which one. And he listed all the players we'd signed in January. I'm not going to put everyone through that again, especially because I can't remember them all. But, oh, wow, it was depressing to hear. I think there was one good signing out of all of them. That was it. But back to the January window. Naturally, if you've got an asset that you're going to be as your best player in the team and you're going for something as big as 10 in a row, you then, of course, can increase more value on him as well because you don't want to release him. And that is where you start getting numbers like 30 million. And remember as well, we're not coming up with that. That was something that Roger Mitchell said was in the Italian press. So unless they meant 30 million lira, I'm not quite sure that it will be a £30 million bid anyway, to be perfectly honest with you.
I know. So Italian press they've got a rabid sport press and football press across there. So it could just be them firing names. It could just be his agent as well, putting his name out there as well. And if I go back to my really being really cynical, maybe his upturning form is because his transfer window's coming up, and he could have a fantastic 2 games. We want him to have a fantastic 2 games. We want him to be fantastic to the end of his Celtic career, whenever that's going to be. And if he's only turning up because he's got a chance for a move, because that window's now looming up, then we have got to actually benefit for that. We've got a game on Wednesday night. I'm going to go back to Paul. Not that Paul's no ever mentioned this, that me and him watched the Lazio home game with Andrew Innes for the Primal Scream last season. Me and him, and he did spend the whole evening calling Lazio. He did. So he's a cool guy, and if Andrew's watching, I hope you had a nice Christmas, mate. Game on Wednesday night. Well, it's Wednesday afternoon, bizarrely. 3:00 Wednesday afternoon. Dundee United will be looking to put on a show for the man for me who was Mr. Dundee United, Jim McLean. You're a bit younger than me, Russell, so have you got any memories of Jim McLean's Dundee United, or am I going to need to show my Celtic dad credentials here again?
I certainly think you'll remember more about him than I do. All I remember was he was the manager. I think must have been about 2000 off. So it's the famous one where he punches the reporter. He says, "You think I'm going to answer a question like that?" And he sort of punched the reporter off here. I can't even remember his name. But that would be my only sort of memory of someone like Jim McLean. It wasn't, unfortunately, my era as such, Kev.
You'll remember
Jim, too much.
You'll remember Jim McLean. That Jim McLean interview was more that was when he sort of became a parody himself. A bit like Brian Clough towards the end, where football had moved on and young players had became prima donnas, and they weren't into selling. They weren't into signing 7-year contracts for 42 quid a week. So me and you are both from the Stirling area. You worked in the Stirling on the Boozer in the Stirling area. So I played in the same. Well, I was at the same boys' club as Duncan Ferguson. So I remember Ferguson when he played for Dundee United. He didn't have a good word to say about Jim McLean, just because football was changing at that point, and Jim McLean was still giving out YTS £36 a week contracts and expecting the players to sign 4-year contracts at £36 a week. But to get back to peak Jim McLean in the 1980s. I first started going to the football in the 1980s, and Change Days was when Dundee United came to Celtic Park. You didn't expect to beat them. You expected them to come and get a result, because McLean had built a fantastic, tactically astute side. And you look what they've done. They won the league and they got to the European Cup semi-final the following year against Roma, and they were absolutely cheated out against Roma. Roma bribed the referee, and that's been proved that Roma bribed that referee. They got to a UEFA Cup final, and on the way they bet Borussia Mönchengladbach and Barcelona. And this was a small provincial club. This is a club which, before Jim McLean turned up, didn't have any history whatsoever. And if there's any Dundee United fans out there, you can jump on it. But for me, what Jim McLean maybe done with Dundee United outshone what Alec Ferguson done with Aberdeen, because I think Aberdeen were a bigger club than what Dundee United were. And for Dundee United to do that with Jim McLean is unbelievable. And he was ahead of his time. And I find it quite weird. That the Rangers fans do not like Dundee United for some utterly bizarre reason, when their glory years under Walter Smith were built under Jim McLean. Walter Smith learned everything. He knew about football under Jim McLean because he was Jim McLean's assistant manager.
That's right.
And for me, Jim McLean's legacy is not the same as Alex Ferguson because he didn't leave Dundee United. He didn't go when he was considered for the Celtic job in 1983, as Paul's put on the screen there. And also he was considered for the Rangers job as well. I actually think he got interviewed for the Rangers job before Graham Souness. And wow. I think if Jim McLean had left Dundee United, he would have been the same as Alex Ferguson, aura-wise. The thing about Ferguson was an old-school manager as well, but Ferguson changed with the times, and maybe that's my one doubt I maybe had about McLean. But then again, he was in the same scenario, he was in the same environment, he was in that Dundee United. He never left Dundee United. One of my main memories about Jim McLean was towards his end, the end of his management time at Dundee United, and he used to be in that wee director's box with the phone. That wee glass box. He wouldn't go to the dugout because he couldn't get a decent view of the game, and he would sit in that wee director's box, and you would actually see him raging at the phone, and he would be punching the phone down and all of that. So a Celtic State of Mind would like to pay respects to Jim McLean, who is one of the legends of the Scottish game, and our thoughts and our prayers are with his family at this what must be a really difficult time for him, especially at this time of year. Now, we played Dundee United on. Since Jim McLean's left, Dundee United have been a sort of yo-yo club. For me, I love going to Tannadice. I think Tannadice is a great, it's a great away day. We've got them at home the other night. We've got them at home on Wednesday. Mickey Mellon sets his team up a 3-5-2. They're difficult to beat and they can grind out results. What would your team be on Wednesday, Russell?
I think the team on Wednesday, I would be definitely looking at the back to find out, obviously, with it, like we touched on earlier, who's fit and who's not. What's the story with Shane Duffy? Because I think I would rather have Duffy. I know he's, for whatever mistakes he's made this season, I would definitely rather have him playing in the Glasgow Derby at the weekend. But to do that, you need to have minutes in your legs. And because he didn't obviously play a part against Hamilton, I would definitely be looking to try and get him back shoehorned in the team. Because I can't see Beaton starting at Ibrox, to be totally honest. I don't see it happening. So I would like to think Duffy will play. I hope Julien's back, because I would like to play Julien. I would like to go with the back five that you actually suggested. Give or take Taylor or Laxalt. I appreciate the assists and all that, but I would still go one of the, either or in that position. I'm not too fussed. Ryan Christie's an interesting one for me, because I don't think he needs to play. I think he's been less effective, but I think he's played a heck of a lot of minutes this season, club and country. We all know that. I don't think Lennon was happy that he played the 3 games in that last international break. He started all 3 for Scotland, didn't he? And I think he might benefit from coming out the team for this one. I appreciate the creative force that he is as well, though. It's not an easy decision to leave him out. But there are other options there, and obviously the interesting one that Paul touched on was start Mikey Johnson. Because Mikey Johnson could be a very interesting weapon for the next game as well. I'm sounding a bit presumptuous here that we can just do experiments in this game. I don't mean it like that. I think you need to manage the team properly for both matches that are coming up in the next sort of week or so. And I think Johnson would benefit from a start, definitely. And I think he looked quite quite fresh when he came on as well. Anyway, Christie, I think definitely for me would benefit from not starting. In the midfield, I would definitely be playing Sorrow and Turnbull. I don't think there's any two ways about that. I think that's a stick on. And then on the left is an interesting one again. I don't know if El Yunusi, I think, is looking like he's going to be an impact sub between now and the end of the season. Would you agree with that?
Brown, I think Scott Brown needs to be in and around the squad, and it's interesting what you say, what you're mentioning is squad management, and we've never seen decent squad management this season. Christie has played a lot of games. Would I see Frimpong on that right hand side? I would only put Frimpong on that right hand side on Wednesday night. It's Wednesday afternoon. It's no Wednesday night. I would only see that if Ayer's behind him. I'm more I think they can make maybe one or two changes in the final third, midfield final third, but our defence, the five in that defence has got to be the defence that's going to play at Ibrox.
Yes, I agree with that.
Donny Boy 67, glad Kev's no Celtic manager. I'm glad I'm no Celtic manager either, because it would be absolutely horrendous, and I've got no doubts about that. So I would maybe say a couple of changes. Griff needs game time. Eddie needs game time. Mikey Johnson needs game time as well. And that's the three things that we've got to look at. Sorrow and Turnbull need game time also. So that they're the five that have got to play, and also the ones behind. So I can't see him making too many changes for Wednesday night. But because basically his squad management has been atrocious all this season, I've got to go back to Falkenhoof. What I actually says is Alex Ferguson changed with the times, and I couldn't see Jim McLean doing it. So the Dundee United players took him to court for slavery with the contracts. That's what I mean. Where Russell remembers Jim McLean is where it got into the parody, only an excuse, Jim McLean. So if you can stop commenting on that about your slavery, we actually agree with you. So we can get on with that. Paul's asking, Russell, what's been your Celtic highlight of 2020?
It's a nice way to round off the show, isn't it? What the highlight of 2020 has been. It's frustrating because I think winning 9 in a row should be the highlight, but obviously the circumstance that happened and did take the shine off it slightly. I still think it is the highlight, to be honest with you. I think that run in general, where we came back from, a place at the new year where we were a bit concerned that the wheels were falling off a wee bit. Well, maybe not the wheels falling off, it's a bit extreme, but we felt that we were under the cosh. I just thought that resurgence of Celtic in that 11-game winning run was quite inspirational, to be honest with you. I think Lee Griffiths coming into the fold during that spell was probably my highlight of it, because he was proving the doubters wrong yet again. He was inspirational up front with Edward, scored important goals. Obviously got in the ball pointing at Chris Boyd thing, which I loved all that as well. I think that would be my highlight of it. The Scottish Cup win, as I said, this year I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed it more on Monday, talking about it with you the next day, to be honest with you. Even when we lifted the trophy, I wasn't even smiling. I was just a nervous wreck, stressed out. So
I'm meant to be the negative one here, Russell.
I know. It was just one of those days. There was just so much that was happening. It was. I didn't enjoy that like I should have. I don't think. So I would definitely say. The 11-game run when we came back would be my highlight of the 2020 with Celtic.
My highlight has to be winning the quadruple treble. I think that cup final last week completely topped off what I think is the end of the era. I think that bookends it, and I think I was thinking to myself, like, we done a podcast with Aaron Boyle from the Kano Foundation. And I says on that podcast that the amount of trebles that we've racked up is more impressive to me than winning all the league titles. Just because what we've seen in the last 6 weeks, getting beat off Ross County and Rangers getting beat off St Mirren, one slip up in a cup tie to go 36 cup games unbeaten, for me is more impressive than winning the 9 league titles. It's more remarkable than winning the 9 league titles in a row. And I'm not just saying that because we're so many points behind now. I says it a year and a bit ago. I says, for me, this is a lot more impressive than winning the league titles in a row. And I can't change that opinion. I really can't change that opinion. And even though it was a bit strange, the cup final, I mean, celebrating that moment with my dad, because the chances are I would have been at the game if I would have been lucky enough in the Celtic ballot. And mind you, maybe not this year, because I think my name will probably be withdrawn from all Celtic ballots in the future because of my views on the Celtic board in the last couple of months. But celebrating that with my dad, Ayer scoring that penalty kick, was perfect. The guy who introduced me to football, the guy who introduced me to Celtic. And the year me and my mum passed away this year, and it's been really tough during lockdown for all of us. So that point to me is a massive, massive high point.
Yeah.
And really, I'm not bothered what ends up happening the rest of this season, but that's not going to get took away from me. That high point's not going to get took away from me in this season. So I've got to say winning the quadruple treble, just for maybe the whole circumstances surrounding it. And I don't think it'll ever be beaten. I mean, I remember Martin O'Neill winning our second treble in 2000 and thinking that was a massive achievement because that was our second treble in history. And now we've won 4 in a row. And you're going, wow, that'll never get taken away from us. I think it's been proved in the last 6 weeks that will never get taken away from us. Jungle Lion says, highlight seeing Naismith and Halliday collecting their runner-up medals. Very funny. Well, if that tickles your boat, it is quite funny, but I often wonder what happens with these runners-up medals. I wonder if anybody's got the runners-up medals. And it was quite interesting when you watched it because they didn't need to go up and get them. They just went and picked them up for a box because there was nobody handing them out.
That's right.
I was more happy to see Bruni and Callum McGregor actually picking up the trophy. They were showing that they were together with Lenny as well, telling Lenny to get in, telling John Kennedy to get in. Yep. And that's something that shows maybe the spirit is in the squad. World history. Zinco Vix 8754. Was that the name of a ZX Spectrum? I'm not 100% sure. Was that a name of a failed ZX Spectrum? World history. Our only beautiful club could do that. What a time this is. Truly honoured to witness it. I agree with that. I really, really do agree with that. And as we go to the end of this year, I think only time will make us fully appreciate what we've achieved even more, because we're still in the middle of a storm at this precise moment in time. We're still in a season storm. So Russell, just to end up here, because Paul's going to need to switch us off, or we'll be here all day. What's your prediction for Wednesday night, and what's your prediction for Saturday? Sorry.
I think the Dundee United match could have some sticky moments. I think it's one that we will get over the line because it's what we do in these moments, and we're going to bring back that magic from this time last year. I'm telling you, they'll win 2-1.
Was that the Dundee United game there?
Yep.
Dundee United.
On Wednesday, yeah.
What about Saturday?
Got to stay positive. I can't say all I've said today and then just suddenly go with the draw, can I? Celtic will win it. It's going to be squeaky. It's going to be 3-2 to Celtic. A lot of goals, mate. Yeah, we'll concede. We will concede, but it's going to be one of those ones we don't know how we've got over the line, but we have. Right.
I'm not going to say nothing because I'm going to be doing the Dundee United game, so
I'll
leave my prediction for the Dundee United game. So I just want to thank Russell for coming on, Paul for his fleeting appearance and his production duties, and all the commenters and all the viewers. And have a great day, everybody. Cheers. Keep the faith.
See you there.